Welcome to the Author Path, a GracePoint Publishing podcast. I'm Michelle Vandepas, your host. And on these podcasts, you'll find out everything about publishing, hybrid publishing, self-publishing, independent publishing, acquisition publishing, and of course, our author interviews and all the books we publish. So I'm so happy you're here. Today's episode is with Emma Churchman. You can find out more about her at emmachurchman.com and the 3 books that she has published with GracePoint. Yay, welcome to the show, Emma. It's so great to have you here. You have your 3 books behind you. That is quite an accomplishment for anybody, right? To publish 1 book is an amazing feat. And you published 3. So welcome to the show.
Thank you. Yeah, and I'm so grateful to you and to GracePoint Publishing because I think we got all 3 of these books out within 18 months.
It was crazy. So the first one was right after Hurricane Helene, the deep end of hope in the wake of Hurricane Helene. And we knew each other on Facebook and had kind of circled around in the coaching space and knew each other a little bit. And so I'd been following you and read your posts on Facebook. I'm like, oh my gosh, this not only can this gal write, but she's like smart and in the middle of this Hurricane Helene catastrophe. So I reached out. How did it feel when I reached out to you? Can you go back?
It was amazing. Yeah, I had been volunteering as a trauma chaplain in my rural Appalachian community here in Western North Carolina, which really got a brunt of the devastation from Hurricane Helene. And we didn't have anyone show up for 4 days. So I had gone bushwhacked 3 miles down our mountain to the fire station on day 4 and said to the fire chief, "Can I help?" And he said, "Yes, here's your first case." So I started, once we got access to social media, because our phones weren't working, I started posting about what was happening, boots on the ground, because it was very different than what the media was sharing. So Michelle, those were the posts that you were starting to see every day where I was talking about the impact of trauma in the wake of a natural disaster.
So we're going to talk about that. So we're going to come back to that book, but we did get it out in a crazy fast amount of time. You were the first book out, got lots of press, amazing. But then we were talking and I realized you had a whole nother book inside of you, again, about trauma, but also healing from trauma. So talk to me about Unshattered.
Yeah, absolutely. So here's the image for Unshattered. Surviving my mother's 123 personalities and transforming a legacy of abuse. So that was a heck of a book to write because it really was diving into what was the trauma that caused me to realize that there was a problem, that, there are some things that needed to be healed. So it's my memoir, essentially looking at this legacy, generational legacy of abuse in our family and the journey that I took to heal from that and to transform that into something greater than simply survival.
It's an amazing book for anybody who hasn't seen that book yet. I highly recommend you go get it. It's at the library, it's at bookstores everywhere, it's on everywhere online. They're all amazing books, but that one would really also touch my heart because of what you did to survive. Right? And survive is in the subtitle, and rightly so. And so we've got one book where you're in the throes of having to survive a natural disaster. Then we've got the next book where you survived and became very resilient and out the other side from a traumatic childhood. So now let's go to the third book.
Sure. Yeah. So that is Navigating the Deep End, Resilient Leadership in a Volatile World. And that comes out this year, 2026.
It does. And what's amazing is that sort of ties it all together into what you're doing now. You're a leader in trauma there's a word, there's a phrase for it. Emma,
A subject matter expert in trauma recovery. Yeah.
thank you. Yeah, you taught me that this morning, and then it hasn't stuck yet. Subject matter expert in trauma recovery.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so you speak, you do, you're a guest on podcasts, but you speak. You've even started a nonprofit,
Yeah.
all wrapped up in this trauma. And so navigating the deep end, though, is a little more corporate, a
Mm-hmm.
little more nonprofit leaning, right? To help other organizations help their people.
Exactly. Exactly. And it features case studies of women leaders, directors of NGOs or corporations who had to navigate their own crisis moment. A couple of the examples are from natural disasters. One is a health example, someone who got cancer. A couple are COVID examples of having to entirely pivot their business in the wake of COVID. So it's really looking at how do we show up as leaders in our worst moments and what can support us to do that in a healthy, sustainable way instead of a way that causes even more harm to us mentally, emotionally, and spiritually.
That's a really good point, because it's difficult when you're working through trauma and there's people around you traumatized, like in a crisis situation, and you're triggered and they're triggered. And how do you get through it, right? And how do you navigate that? So, another reason I love your book title. So, we have these three books that, for me, sort of outline your journey,
Hmm.
how you got to where you are now, not only trauma chaplain, not only very well known, highly successful coach in the business world and the entrepreneurial world, but now also bringing all of that together with with the specialty in trauma, right? And helping corporations. So I know you're speaking this summer, various places. Anything you can share?
Yeah, absolutely. We're actually going to do a little bit of a book launch for Navigating the Deep End at a conference coming up in June for the Women's Business Enterprise National Council. This is the organizing body that certifies women-owned businesses in the US, and about 5,000 of us come together for a week each summer to network and to learn. And it's a beautiful opportunity to showcase this book to women leaders. So that's something I'm looking forward to. I also just got back from a week-long conference with disaster recovery leaders. So there are 130 main disaster recovery organizations based in the US that do response and recovery in the wake of natural disasters. And that's another market that is very clear that there is a gap right now in trauma recovery in our country, especially in the disaster space, where it's very easy to kind of standardize how to do physical recovery in the wake of a disaster, gut and rebuild the homes, fix the bridges, fix the roads, make sure everyone has food and shelter. But there's not a standard for mental, emotional, and spiritual recovery. And that's
Wow.
part of what I'm really passionate about, creating a national standard for that, because we're at a point now with natural disasters where they've increased by 300% in the past decade.
Yeah.
And I believe they've become a global epidemic. And we need to start interacting with them as if they were a global epidemic.
Yeah. And you're not just doing natural disasters, you could do any crisis
Yeah,
situation.
exactly. Yeah.
I heard, going down a little bit of a rabbit hole, I heard an interview yesterday on NPR with a journalist who'd been at 9/11. And I guess 60 journalists have either died or gotten incredibly sick from being at 9/11, and they have no support. And so I never really thought about it. You hear about the firefighters and the disaster people who come in that are trained, but I never thought about the journalists before.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks.
Lots of people are impacted by disasters and by crises, and we've got to learn how to recover our trauma in the moment, because we no longer have the luxury of spending 6 months hanging out on a therapist couch, feeling our feelings, right? Because the next
Right.
crisis is
Right.
already on its way.
And that's a good point, because that's one thing we talked about in your Hurricane Helene book, The Deep End of Hope, was that you were just processing your trauma as you went, because you had to be able to support the people as a chaplain. You couldn't get stuck in your own stuff. And so I remember discussing that a little bit with you. And it's like, we all need that right now. There's so much, there was a shooting here last week, right? It's like
Mm,
we all need to just process, or we're going to like curl up in a ball, because
yeah.
there's so much. There's so much. So we have a few minutes left. What was the process for you to actually write 3 books in 18 months? Never mind get them published. Like, that's a lot of writing.
Yes, that's hundreds of thousands of words of writing.
Yeah.
And, people ask me that all the time. They say, how did you write not one, but two, but 3 books
Right?
in such a short amount of time? And honestly, for me, it wasn't a problem because there were so many stories that needed to be told, right? It's like partly a therapeutic process for myself to get the stories out of me. So I'm
Hmm.
no longer holding them inside of me.
Yeah. And then obviously you went through editing and layout. And we went through a lot of covers on Unshattered before we landed on that one, right?
Mhm.
All the things. I'm writing a memoir right now, and I'm trying to take my own advice when I talk with other people who write their memoirs. And it's difficult to discern how much of my family I want to put in my memoir.
Mm,
And I commend you for just putting it all, you just put your heart out on the page in your memoir, and it shows. That's not easy. And it's not easy when there are still family members alive and other people around you, right? Have you gotten backlash? How do you feel now that it's out and published and getting reviews and getting press? How does it feel now?
it feels good. I have not gotten a lot of backlash, but also my father and all 3 of my brothers have died. So most of my immediate family is gone. And then second generation, they've all passed as well. So that helped a little bit. But part of it was simply a decision that this is my story and
Mhm.
I am allowed to interpret it in whatever way that I want to, right? And really trying to take ownership for my own experience rather than it being a memoir full of blame and I can't believe XYZ person did this to me. It was very much about these are the facts, this is what happened, and here's what I'm choosing to do with that now.
Yeah, and totally from your perspective, your memories. This is your life journey, right? Someone else may view the same story with a slightly different perspective, but that's what memoir is. It's your story.
Yeah.
So,
One thing that was kind of interesting though is that I do have some closer family members who refuse to read the book. And when
mhm.
I asked them about it, they said, we don't, it hurts us too much to know that you went through all of that and to have to read it on the page it is emotionally too much for us to have to deal with it. And it took me a while to get that, but I respect that because there are people who love and care for me and they don't want to hear or read about the horrific things that happened.
I think that's another place where you can really help people out there, because that's not the first time I've heard that. Like with estranged parents and children, they're like, I can't have a relationship because I can't hold what I have to look at. I
Yeah.
can't be in my body and hold what I have to look at about what our past relationship has been, for instance, right? I think there's a lot of that out there. People are exploring that now more than ever. When I was 20, 30 years ago, when I was younger, we never talked about these things. So it's
Hmm.
healthy, it's good. I love your 3 books. Thank you for publishing with GracePoint Publishing. I appreciate it.
Thank
Anything
you for
else you'd
having
like
me.
to leave our audience with?
Yeah, figure out how to recover your trauma in real time, y'all, because the time is now. As a humanity, we've got to figure out how to do this collectively.
Yeah, and so I don't want to forget your nonprofit because you also started a nonprofit.
Yes,
So
I
I
did.
want to make sure we talk about that. That helps train other people to help others work through trauma. Like, are you certifying? Talk about your.
Exactly. Yeah. So the website is traumarecoverycertification.org. The nonprofit is called the Chrysalis Alliance. And we train primarily frontline workers in the disaster space to recover their trauma in real time and to help survivors, to help those impacted by disasters to recover their trauma as well.
Nice. And you're at emmachurchman.com, correct?
That's correct. Yep.
Yeah. Thank you again, Emma. Lovely to have you here. And I can't wait to see if there's a 4th book.
Thank you for having me, Michelle. This was great.